Greetings, everyone. I am Sam Mohsin, founder of ConsciousnessInIslam.com. I would like to welcome you to today's presentation, a continuation from our last presentation titled Consciousness, Part 2 of 3, The 5 Dimensions of Consciousness, an Ontological Ascent from Consciousness of Outer Self to Consciousness of Divine Nearness. As per the framework, the following Section C, we will examine the Qur'anic connection between sleep, death, and consciousness. This will help us understand why the loss of outer awareness does not necessarily mean the annihilation of consciousness itself. Qur'anic connection between sleep, death, and consciousness. In this framework of 5 different dimensions of consciousness, the loss of outer consciousness does not necessarily imply the loss of all consciousness. Rather, the outer layer can become veiled while deeper layers remain. This is why dreams occur when waking awareness is absent, and why many mystics speak of states in which ordinary self-awareness fades while a more fundamental awareness remains. The outer self may become inactive, while deeper dimensions of consciousness remain present, sustained by the reality from which consciousness itself arises. Thus, within this framework, death would not necessarily be the annihilation of consciousness. Rather, it would be the cessation of the consciousness of the outer self, the layer tied to the body, senses, brain, space, and time. The physical body ceases to function, the sensory stream stops, the waking ego that navigates the material world loses its instrument. In that sense, the consciousness of the outer self disappears. But that does not logically imply that all consciousness disappears. Once again, Allah gives a profound indication of this mystery in Quran 39:42. Allah takes the souls at the time of their death, and those that do not die during their sleep. He keeps those for which He has decreed death, and releases the others until an appointed term. Surely in this are signs for people who reflect. The journey of Sufism is therefore not merely moral improvement. It is the gradual unveiling of deeper layers of consciousness, until the human being realizes that beneath apparent separation exists a deeper unity sustained by divine reality. D. In this section, we will bring this entire exploration into the practical path of Islam. We will examine how prayer, fasting, charity, and pilgrimage are not empty rituals, but sacred practices designed to create resonance between the consciousness of outer self and the consciousness of inner self. But what is resonance? Resonance is the alignment of the outer self and the inner self, followed by Ruhul Amin, or consciousness of revelation, Ruhul Qudus, or consciousness of purification, and Ruhullah, or consciousness of divine nearness as natural outcome. One of the central purposes of the human journey may be understood as the progressive alignment of the consciousness of the outer self with the consciousness of the inner self. The outer self is the dimension through which we engage the world of form. It is concerned with survival, identity, social roles, desires, fears, ambitions, and the countless interactions that arise within space and time. The inner self, by contrast, is the deeper dimension of our being. It is the realm of meaning, intuition, wisdom, conscience, love, and spiritual awareness. While the outer self looks outward toward the changing world of appearances, the inner self remains oriented toward the timeless reality from which consciousness itself emerges. For most human beings, these 2 dimensions are not fully aligned. The outer self often seeks what is temporary, while the inner self seeks what is eternal. The outer self seeks possession, while the inner self seeks meaning. The outer self seeks control, while the inner self seeks surrender. The outer self is frequently governed by fear, while the inner self is naturally drawn toward love. As long as these dimensions remain in conflict, the human being experiences fragmentation, tension, confusion, and inner disorder. This state may be understood as a form of spiritual entropy, a condition in which the various aspects of consciousness are moving in different directions and therefore fail to function as a harmonious whole. The spiritual journey is therefore not merely the acquisition of knowledge, beliefs, or rituals. At its deepest level, it is the gradual harmonization of the outer and inner dimensions of consciousness. When the outer self begins to reflect the values, wisdom, and orientation of the inner self, a profound transformation occurs. Action becomes aligned with intention. Behavior becomes aligned with conscience. The outer life becomes aligned with the inner reality. What was once divided begins to move as a unified whole. From a metaphysical perspective, this state may be described as a resonance between two dimensions of consciousness. Just as two vibrating strings tuned to the same frequency begin to resonate with one another, the outer self and the inner self begin to enter into harmony when their orientations become aligned. In the language of physics, one may say that the outer frequency begins to align with the inner frequency. In the language of spirituality, one may say that the outward life begins to reflect the inward truth. The result of this alignment is the emergence of a profound state of peace. This peace is not merely the absence of conflict. Rather, it is the natural consequence of harmony between the different dimensions of one's being. From this harmony arises love. Not love as emotion alone, but love as a state of existential coherence, a condition in which consciousness is no longer fragmented against itself. Peace is therefore the music of alignment. Love is the resonance created by that music. Together, they form a spiritual symphony, arising from the harmonization of the outer and inner dimensions of consciousness. The greater the alignment, the deeper the peace. The deeper the peace, the greater the love. And the greater the love, the closer consciousness moves toward its ultimate source. For the journey of consciousness is ultimately a journey from separation toward unity, from fragmentation toward harmony, and from fear toward love. This understanding naturally raises another question. If resonance is the goal, then what role do the rituals and practices found throughout the world's religious traditions play within that journey? From this perspective, one may view practices such as prayer, fasting, pilgrimage, charity, meditation, remembrance, contemplation, and countless other forms of spiritual discipline not merely as acts of obedience or devotion, but as instruments designed to facilitate the alignment of the outer self with the inner self. Although the forms differ across traditions, their deeper purpose often points toward the same reality: the gradual harmonization of human consciousness. Through regular practice, discipline, reflection, and repetition, the individual is repeatedly invited to turn inward, to observe the movements of the self, and to cultivate awareness beyond the immediate demands of the material world. The ritual itself is therefore not necessarily the destination. Rather, it may be understood as a pathway toward resonance. However, throughout history, certain interpretations of religion have occasionally reduced these practices to a form of spiritual transaction. In such views, rituals become primarily a means of accumulating rewards, securing salvation, or obtaining benefits in the afterlife. While such motivations may possess their own value within religious life, an exclusive focus upon them can sometimes obscure the deeper transformative purpose of the practices themselves. In this sense, the spiritual journey risks becoming a reflection of material capitalism, a pursuit centered upon acquisition, accumulation, and future reward, rather than a process of inner transformation, self-knowledge, and the awakening of consciousness. From a metaphysical perspective, the deeper purpose of ritual is not merely to obtain something in the future, but to become something in the present. Its purpose is not simply reward, but transformation. Not merely compensation, but realization. Not merely paradise as destination, but harmony as a state of being. With time, sincere practice may lead the individual toward moments of insight, contemplation, self-discovery, and inner awakening. Gradually, the outer self begins to move in harmony with the deeper wisdom of the inner self. When this alignment occurs, the practitioner experiences the very resonance toward which the ritual was always pointing. At that moment, the significance of the ritual itself begins to transform. What was once performed merely as an obligation becomes a living reality. What was once repetition becomes remembrance. What was once discipline becomes intimacy. What was once a practice becomes a state of being. The ritual remains the same, yet the consciousness experiencing it has changed. A natural question therefore arises. What comes first, ritual or the understanding of our deeper reality through consciousness? The answer is not simple. For some, contemplation and inquiry precede practice. Through questioning, reflection, philosophy, spirituality, or direct experience, they arrive at a deeper understanding that subsequently gives meaning to ritual. For others, the path unfolds in the opposite direction. Through years of sincere practice, devotion, discipline, and perseverance, understanding gradually emerges from within the ritual itself. Sometimes ritual gives birth to understanding. Each becomes the doorway to the other. What remains clear, however, is that not every individual is naturally inclined toward deep philosophical inquiry or metaphysical analysis. Many people are neither interested in nor called toward extensive exploration of consciousness, ontology, or the nature of reality. For such individuals, there is no necessity to become philosophers or mystics. They may simply continue upon the path of sincere practice, trusting the wisdom embedded within the traditions they have inherited. The ritual itself possesses a transformative power. Through consistent engagement, it may gradually cultivate awareness, soften the heart, refine perception, and guide the individual toward the resonance for which every soul longs. This observation, however, carries an important caveat. The fact that one is not called toward deep philosophical inquiry does not imply that one is excused from self-examination, compassion, or the pursuit of inner transformation. For rituals detached from reflection can easily become habits, and habits detached from consciousness can gradually lose their transformative power. Throughout history, individuals and societies have often assumed that the performance of religious obligations alone is sufficient to compensate for the deeper disorders of the self. In such cases, ritual risks becoming a substitute for transformation rather than a catalyst for it. One may pray while remaining unjust. One may fast while remaining indifferent to suffering. One may give charity while continuing to participate in systems that create poverty. One may seek forgiveness while remaining unwilling to abandon the very patterns that require forgiveness. When this occurs, the spiritual journey begins to mirror the very materialism it was intended to transcend. The individual unconsciously adopts a transactional understanding of spirituality. Wrongdoing is accumulated on one side of the scale, ritual observance on the other, with the hope that the latter will simply offset the former. Yet the deeper purpose of spiritual practice is not merely to erase the consequences of our actions. Its purpose is to transform the consciousness from which those actions arise. Many of the challenges that characterize the modern world, war, exploitation, greed, the accumulation of immense fortunes while others remain hungry and abandoned, and the normalization of human suffering, may be understood, at least in part, as manifestations of a consciousness that has mastered ritual while neglecting resonance. For resonance inevitably expresses itself as compassion. Resonance expresses itself as justice. Resonance expresses itself as mercy. Resonance expresses itself as love. A consciousness truly aligned with its deeper reality cannot remain indifferent to the suffering of others, because it increasingly perceives the unity that underlies apparent separation. Thus, the measure of spiritual progress is not merely the quantity of rituals performed, but the degree of harmony, compassion, humility, and love that emerge from them. The authentic purpose of ritual is therefore not simply to secure reward, nor merely to obtain forgiveness, but to participate in a gradual transformation through which the outer self becomes a reflection of the inner self, and the inner self becomes a clearer reflection of the divine qualities it seeks to embody. And should that resonance eventually arise, the practitioner may discover that what appeared to be a series of outward actions was in reality a carefully constructed path leading toward an inner symphony. For ultimately, the highest purpose of ritual is not the movement of the body alone, but the harmonization of consciousness itself, the alignment of the outer self with the inner self, until both vibrate in the same spiritual frequency and become instruments in the symphony of peace, love, and divine remembrance. The ultimate goal of the spiritual journey is therefore resonance. For resonance is peace. Resonance is harmony. Resonance is love. And resonance is the state in which the outer self and the inner self cease to move in opposition and begin to sing the same eternal song of love. Next comes the understanding of any incident or event. For any given incident, the outer self forms perceptions, conceptions, and interpretations based upon its limited viewpoint. As a result, countless meanings may arise from a single event or incident, each shaped by personal experience, conditioning, desire, fear, and understanding. Yet beyond these fragmented interpretations lies the inner reality of the event itself. When the perception of the outer self becomes aligned with the deeper truth perceived by the inner self, understanding becomes coherent and experience becomes whole. In this sense, for every event, there may be countless partial meanings, but only one meaning that fully reflects the reality of what has occurred. The many interpretations belong to the fragmented perspectives of observers. The one reality belongs to the event itself. Just as many mirrors may reflect the same sun in different ways, so too many minds may interpret the same incident differently. The reflections vary, but the sun remains one. Wisdom is therefore not the multiplication of interpretations, but the progressive alignment of perception with reality, until the outer understanding resonates with the inner truth. When this resonance occurs, fragmentation gives way to coherence, and the many apparent meanings converge toward the one reality they were always attempting to describe. Philosophically, this reveals a profound distinction between interpretation and reality. Many interpretations may coexist, yet if an objective truth underlies an event, some interpretations necessarily correspond more closely to that truth than others. The closer an interpretation comes to reality, the greater its coherence with the actual nature of what is being observed. In the language of resonance, truth is the state in which the observer's understanding vibrates in harmony with reality itself. Love then becomes the unifying principle that dissolves separation between knower and known, allowing consciousness to participate more fully in truth. Thus, resonance is not merely an intellectual alignment with reality, but an ontological movement toward unity, and love is the force through which that unity is realized. Thus, the final sequence can be philosophically interpreted as reality, then truth, then resonance, then unity, and finally love. Or even more elegantly, truth is the recognition of unity, and the experience of that unity is love.